Millions of views doesn't necessarily translate to millions of dollars. And that's the truth that no one's telling you. In this special edition of Thursday's Thought, I'm joined by my client, who is an exceptional coach and podcast host, Esther Iturralde. We dive into what really happens behind the scenes of a business with high numbers and high engagement. In this episode, you'll learn why having a large following can feel like a privilege and a pain point, how to handle the haters, why a large subscriber list doesn't necessarily translate into large sales, and why being fixated on your numbers can actually create a big disconnect with your audience and your mission. Esther Iturralde started Rocket Visual Communications 10 years ago, a studio specializing in branding. It was through Rocket that she found her calling to entrepreneurship and coaching. Esther began coaching 5 years ago and focuses on one-on-one transformational coaching. It was after coaching that she found success in public speaking and online courses that specialize in emotional health and well-being. Her current project is Epic Love, a deep dive into relationships, healing, and self-love. Epic Love guides those experiencing profound romantic loss to a place of peace and healing. Esther's recent successes include her hit podcast, Reinventate, which is currently the #1 Spanish podcast in health and self-help in all Latin American countries. And she is now looking forward to the inaugural Reinventate Summit, which launches November 2019. Now, for those of you who haven't heard this yet, I am on the search for conscious thought leaders who are seeking to be part of a community of like minds in 2020. Thought leaders who are using their platforms for purpose and are ready to create a magnetic movement around their message. If that's you, please apply, and I mean apply today, to become one of the 10 leaders in the Thought Leader Collective. Head to www.rubyfremon.com/TLC and apply ASAP for one of the final seats. If you dig this podcast, please stay in the loop by signing up for my weekly emails. Sign up today at rubyfremon.com/subscribe. And whether you're new to the podcast or a loyal thought leader, please make sure you take a moment to download a few episodes and drop a rating and review on iTunes. Now it is time to see what really happens behind the scenes of a business with high numbers and high engagement with Esther Iturralde. Hey, thought leaders, I am back with a special guest for this edition of Thursday's Thought, Esther Iturralde. I'm trying to do the R roll. How do you do it? Esther, say it.
Iturralde.
Iturralde.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
That's right.
Esther is an incredible woman on so many accords, and she is part of the alliance with me and Kimra. So I've had the pleasure and the honor of working with her this year. And one thing I can say for certain is I don't think I've met a leader who puts in as much effort as you do into everything that you do.
Yeah.
Like, she takes, to our listeners, she takes action on shit really, really quick and does so in a really big way. I mean, I remember you recorded like all your videos for one of your free trainings, like in one day. Like, that's just how you implement. You're really quick like that. And I just want to say, like, I see that in you and I honor that in you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And I'm super excited to have you here because in this episode, we're going to be talking a little bit about what goes on behind the scenes. And Esther has the #1 podcast in all Latin American countries in health and self-help, by the way, which is a category that's really hard to take over. And you've taken over that. And you have an incredible audience, an email list of 19,000 plus, an online following, which is really, really strong and highly, highly engaged. And so I think you're the perfect person to share what really goes on the behind the scenes of something like this, because I think it's really easy for people to look at someone like you and just assume like, oh, she has it easy, everything's working, everything's working for her. But what's really going on?
Man. A lot of ups and downs.
Yeah.
And the privilege of talking to pretty amazing people, the privilege of hearing like secret stories and, like heavy confessions all the time.
In your DMs.
Yeah, in my DMs. And also, today, like that, like we're here talking about what happens behind the scenes. Today, I got a lot of hate, like a lot. So I'm learning to let it slip. Like, thanks to you, I'm learning a lot on like what should matter and what shouldn't matter and what people say to me on social media or like on my ads. It's kind of frustrating to be putting money to reach people you want to help and then reaching the people that like want to hate you. So
Right. And let's talk about that, because I think there's a lot of people striving to have a bigger following, to have more engagement, to reach more people on their ads. And what that also can do is open the doors to more haters.
mm-hmm. Yeah,
who can be very vocal.
Yeah, I'm very annoying.
I mean, I remember there was one ad campaign that you ran, and you had a lot of like religious haters.
Yes,
which was hard. Who were very vocal in the comment thread.
Yeah. I mean, I have heard before, and I think I just didn't understood it. But like people say, like you shouldn't be just gray or warm. You should be cold or hot. You should be black or white, and it's fine. Like when you actually have an opinion about something,
right?
Are going to get haters. That's the thing. And if you don't have haters, then that's a red flag because you also don't have lovers. So you're not really reaching anybody. So when you hear that, it makes sense and everything is fine. And you kind of like, I think I thought I made my peace with that. And I was like, oh yeah, it totally makes sense that when you actually have an opinion, people are going to disagree with you. And some people are going to agree and resonate and everything is going to make sense. But when it actually happens, and at the same time you happen to be struggling with the business, it's just very conflicting to ease your emotions, realign yourself, keep pushing, not get hooked with the haters, and not get angry. So right now I'm like just really going through that idea that I heard before actually sinking in and actually applying the understanding of like, yeah, haters are a normal thing. Everybody has them. It's fine. You shouldn't get hooked up by that. But yeah, it's easier said than done when it's actually happening and you're putting like all your money or like your effort into something that is getting hate. Because usually the lovers are a little bit more quiet and they're less likely to comment that they really resonated with that. And of course there's people that do, but when I think about it, when I really, really love something, like I save it or I screenshot it, I rarely comment. I rarely say, just because I don't think of it. It's kind of like, oh, I like it. I want to treasure it. I want to keep it. I want to follow it. But maybe I don't actually say like, this is so true, or this is really sinking into my heart, or this is really
maybe you don't send them a DM and say, wow, that was amazing, which is why it's so easy to get this skewed perception of reality, because maybe your DMs are filled with the hate mail, or maybe the comment thread on your ads. And I've seen this on other people's ads too on Facebook, where like the entire thread is taken over by haters and trolls. And yeah, it's so true. Like I don't always, once in a while, once in a blue moon, I'll message someone and be like, wow, that really hit home. But I do the same thing. I'll save, or I'll share in my stories, or I'll, do something of that nature. But yeah, so it can offer this skewed perception of what's actually going on. And Is my mission, is my movement, is my message actually being heard by the right people? Which can lead to a lot of self-doubt. And I just want to like, first of all, let's applaud you in where you're at in just everything that you just shared. Because I think like 8 months ago, that would have been a different story.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I mean, 8 months ago, that comment that you received today or the DM, you might have fallen apart.
Yeah. Yeah. Or I would have fight back. Like that's kind of what I used to do. I was like, oh my gosh, this person is totally hating me. And I'm like commenting back, like, what are you doing? Like, what do you have to say about yourself? Like, why would you think this is okay? Or like,
yeah, a reaction
person, you know? Like,
yeah.
I would do that. And that is not healthy, because it gives you like the teeniest pleasure in the moment, kind of like to defend yourself, but then it just makes it worse, and then you start to spiral into like, but why do they hate me, and like why this happened, or you know, it's just it makes it worse, and you start attracting like more of that.
Yeah. So what do you do now?
Well, I block and delete. Sometimes it depends if the hate, because sometimes I get hate that has nothing to do with my message, right? Like things like, what do you know, or like they write a very dirty joke or things like that, you know. So it's not even smart, it's not even about my message.
Yeah, it's
so
not relevant at all.
Yeah, or like they talk about me, like if I'm pretty or ugly, you know, and I'm like, I hate that. So when that happens, I do block and delete. If it's something smart, like, and they don't like it, like what I'm saying or what I believe or whatever, like something like that, then I do comment back, because I can actually not fight back. I can just build the conversation, and it's okay that they don't agree, and maybe that little like text are going to resonate with somebody else that is agreeing with me, and then it's fine, it's a conversation. So those I keep, unless they're like very vulgar, or they're just like horribly written, you know, that I'm like, what is it?
So instead of like having that immediate reaction from your emotions, you have a conversation with them.
Yes.
Because in turn, I mean, I think everyone listening has probably witnessed this at least once if you're on social media, where you do see other leaders like on their posts having these conversations with quote unquote haters or people who just don't agree with them. And when it's done the right way, it's such a powerful learning experience for the people reading it.
Yes.
And it also just shows your confidence in what it is that you are sharing in your opinions and what you're taking a stand for. So there's that aspect of it, the haters, which you get a lot of. There's also this belief in the entrepreneurial space that, and in the leadership space, and I'm so sick and tired of it. It's like the more followers we have, the better, like the more successful we're going to become. And it's such a myth. And I've seen this time and time again. I've even like worked with people, like hired people who have big followers, big following, only to learn like, whoa, you're not at all aligned with what you say. You don't know how to run this business. Like, it's just this false perception of what our society believes is successful, is we need a lot of followers to create that success. And I think that that's something that we have been learning together on your journey.
Yeah.
In that you have like a large community, and not just that, they're not like invisible followers, they're engaged. Your inbox is always full. Like, this is a problem.
Yes.
And yet the conversions is where the struggle is.
Yeah. I have learned that in my market, the Latin American market is very ready to engage whenever something is free. Like, they will like it, share it, comment, email you long stories, big confession, tell you their secrets, right? They are willing to do that when they resonate with you, or with a podcast episode, or with something very personal that I shared. They kind of like reciprocate or whatever.
Yeah, reciprocate.
You know, they do that. They're like, oh my gosh, you shared this, and it's exactly what I'm going through. So here's my entire story. And they drop the bomb on me. right?
Mm-hmm.
But then when I invite them to actually purchase the program that has all the answers to their story, to their struggle, to their anxiety, to their suffering, whatever is going on, I'm like, yes, I understand. You're not crazy. I totally feel you. I've been there. And hey, I created this thing because everything that I would like to tell you, I already built up in a 9-week course or like
Right.
in this program or whatever it is, right? And so, and they're like, oh, and then they go quiet, you know, when I actually invite them to take action. So what I'm learning is that I mean, and I don't want to be like absolute, because of course there's people wanting to take action
For
and all of
sure.
that, but I'm learning that, yeah, Latin American cultures are very ready to just come in and tell you and come clean and drop the bomb and ask for advice and all these things. But when they are asked to put money on it, then most of them get very scared and they don't commit.
Yeah.
And with the, like what I'm learning with the American people, they're less likely to engage. That's why in Facebook ads, like it costs me a lot more to get engagement on my ads when
Mm.
I run them in the States, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're less likely to give you comments, to tell you their truth, because they're more
Right.
reserved, they're more
Reserved. Yeah.
intimate or something, right? And so, but they actually, if they liked it, they're more likely to actually purchase, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and get the full package. So that has been very tough for me, because everything I consume is American, right? Like, well, that I had consumed in my life, like all the courses, my coaching certification, everything that I've done,
Mm-hmm.
I have paid for in dollars, and I have had to like snap out of my I don't know, like my fears and my, yeah, my limiting beliefs about what I can afford, what I can do for
Right. I
myself.
mean, there's a big difference between a $1 and one peso.
Yeah, totally. Like
It,
it's like 20 to 1.
yeah. Yeah.
Right?
And you live in the States, and it's so interesting that you share that with about the Latin culture, because I think that it's so much bigger than that too. Like, I know that there are some listeners who are like, wait, I resonate with this. Like, my DMs are always filled, and no one's buying.
Mhm,
I know that I've shared with you, like, I went through this too when I was, first started coaching and I was working as a self-love coach.
mhm,
Um, what I found is that once we open the doors as leaders, once we start showing up and sharing our stories and sharing from a very authentic place, it it gives other people who are reading it permission to do the same, because they feel like they can relate to you.
mm,
If you share, when I talk about my story with depression, like, I always have people reaching out to me and being like, thank you for sharing that. I'm experiencing the same. And then they share their story. And it's because they feel seen and they feel understood by you. And
mhm,
so all of a sudden, now they have this person that they can reach out to. And that's exciting for them, because I know, I'm not sure about Latin culture, but I know for sure in like my culture and Indian culture and in a lot of like more reserved cultures, we don't talk about this with our families. We don't talk about like any of this with our friends. And so when we see someone who talks about something that is very personal, it opens the doors for us to want to talk. But
mhm,
that doesn't necessarily mean that they're ready to take action. They're
mhm.
just ready to be validated for the pain that they're going through, which means that they're still in victim mentality.
Yes. Yes. Yes, absolutely. They most of them like are really looking to engage in a conversation with me. Like they want to tell me all the details. They want my input. They want to get on the phone with me. Like some of them
Right.
ask me like, "What's your phone number?" And some of them are really demanding sometimes. They're like, "This is urgent. Give me your phone number. Like I need to talk to you
Yeah.
right now." And I'm like, "What did but like when did I say that was an option? Like when
Right. That's not an option that I have.
yeah, I'm like, what's happening? But then I'm like, look, I understand what you're going through, and I understand that this feels very urgent for you. So you can join this like right now, and you can have access to a lot of information today that you're freaking out. And I will hear your entire story. Not only me, but the entire community um will give you like a safe space to express everything,
Right.
and it's not going to be toxic like it could be with a friend, right?
Hmm.
So like, you're welcome to join right now. And then that's when crickets like go off, because it's
Right.
kind of like, they're like, oh, now you're selling me something. And I'm like, I'm selling you professional help. I am selling you something that will give you where you say you're desperate for.
Right.
The desperation goes out the window sometimes when you force them to make a decision.
Well, I think it's not the desperation. I think it's the motivation that goes out the window. They're still desperate, but they're not motivated enough to actually do what's required to change their lives. And I think that as people who work um, in service, like
Mhm.
uh, we're all leading our purposes. We're all very, very attached to the purpose. It's our baby. Like this is something that was birthed through our trauma, through
Mhm.
our wounds. And so we are very passionate about the work that we do.
Mhm.
Um, and we know what it's like to be on the other side of that pain. And so when we see people in pain, all we want to do is like shake them and be like, hey, it's possible. Like you can do this and I can help and I know how to help you. But if they're not willing to accept that help, there's not much else we can do. And I know, um, through our work together, like that was a big lesson too. It's a big lesson that I had is you can't save everyone. We can't save everyone. We can't help everyone. We can't help people who aren't willing to help themselves. And sharing all their deepest, darkest secrets isn't necessarily helping themselves. It's what they're going to do about it. That's really the key, because like I know for a fact you didn't get to where you're at in your life, in your business,
Mhm.
by playing the victim.
Yeah.
You, just like you said, like you invested US dollars into yourself.
Yeah, yeah, totally. It's just
It's
like,
frustrating.
it's hard to kind of like learn from a market
Yeah,
and then learn from that market, but then try to use what you learn to apply it to a different market. And
totally.
disconnect there, that I am learning to juggle, right? Because I'm like, okay, I'm learning all of these things. This is how I act when I purchase things, but that's not necessarily how my market acts. And
Hmm.
I think that I had my own little battle forcing things, like seeing my numbers and astronomical numbers and all this engagement, all this signups, all these people going through my free material, and then being on the other side of the line, just waiting for those that are willing to cross over, and seeing how the numbers decrease dramatically.
Right.
And so it's just kind of like a struggle, because at the same time you want to be grateful for those that actually did take action and actually purchase and are ready, but at the same time, like, it's kind of like having a party that you're getting ready for like 100 people,
Hmm.
and then having only 10 show up. Like, you kind of want to be grateful and want those 10 to have like the time of their life, but like you have so much stuff ready that you wanted to give away to a lot more people.
Right. Like you invested a lot of time and energy and resources.
Yeah.
Like literally your latest ad campaign got how many views was it?
Oh man, like the one I'm running right now it's like over the millions,
Okay. So
like
like
10 million
literally
or something.
over like the million mark of views, and the conversions have yet to really start happening, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sharing this with everyone. Like Esther agreed, by the way, to talk about this
Yeah.
because it's really important for everyone to understand like what you see online isn't the whole story. And what I'm like most, I want to say proud of, but that always sounds like you're my child. What I honor you the most for, I'm so proud of you, is how you're choosing to navigate this, because you're right, it's a different market, and you're using like tools that you've learned in the US market, in the American market, and are applying this in Latin America. But at the same time, you're getting to know your audience, and you're getting to know what works and what doesn't work, and their how they buy. And for the most part, personal development is new for your audience. There's not a ton of personal development available in Latin American countries. And so it's new. And so really you're a pioneer for the work that you're doing in Latin American countries, which means that you're blazing your own trail, which means that you're leading the path, which means that no one's done this and led the path for you. So you're not following a formula that you know for certain works.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's scary.
And yeah, the crazy part is while you are learning this disconnect and what works different and all of that, you risk feeling like you're failing, like it's not working for you. And that's kind of what I've been like noticing, that I'm like, I have been on the verge of feeling like, but I'm failing. And then I'm like,
Right.
no, but at the same time, I'm not failing, because out of the people that actually cross the line and purchase anything from me, if it's coaching or an online thing or like whatever it is that they purchase from me, I have like 100% success rate, like
Right.
100%.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody complains. Nobody tells me that it didn't work. Nobody has said anything like that. On the contrary, they're like super grateful. They love it. They say that is the best decision. All of this like proves to me that I'm not failing.
Right.
It's just that when you're expecting a conversion rate, that people tell you like 1% conversion rate is totally doable. You can do like 2 or 3 or even 4% conversion rate, right? And so when the first time I launched one of my courses, I was like, oh my gosh, if I get 1% conversion rate, I'm set,
Mm-hmm.
And I think I got like 0.001 conversion rate, and
Right.
I was like, but what happened? Well, what happened is a disconnect, because those conversion rates are for the American market or Australian or, Europe,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And when I'm running my campaigns in all South America, of course, they're ready to take that. But then they're not used to paying for professional help. They're not used to investing in themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They're not used to receiving help like online.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The closest would be like, well, I'm gonna go to therapy and then I'm going to see a person for an hour. And I'm gonna
Right.
feel that kind
Yeah,
of
they're
thing.
not used to watching webinars or taking online courses or, investing in themselves or investing in themselves through an online portal. I mean, that's all new. I mean, even the payment system is new for a lot of people. Even just having people to understand Stripe and how to enter your card, like that's all been learning lessons. And so it's really important for our listeners to understand that, Esther hasn't given up. She's
I
gotten
will
close
not.
to it.
Ever.
She will never, even though there's been days when she's just like, fuck this, fuck all this. But she has not, and she won't. And she's driven to continue moving forward because, like she said just now, like she has 100% success rate. She knows that what she's doing is working. She just hasn't found the formula yet. She hasn't created the formula yet to boost those conversions, to get more people to invest in themselves. But she's learning along the way. And I think as leaders, like that's the best thing that we can do. I think the worst thing that we can do is give up too soon,
Yeah.
because that just means we haven't tried everything.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many different ways that we can go about doing this. And what we're learning together is like, a lot of the ways that we've done don't work for you. And so let's find what's going to work for you. Let's create that path that's going to work for you, because it's not that people aren't interested in your work or don't relate to what you're saying. It's just creating that conversion, having more people say yes to investing in themselves,
Mm-hmm.
so that your work can get in the hands of more people.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, totally. And just kind of like right now, I want to forget about the numbers, because the numbers are like this freaking oasis in the desert that is not even there, that when I see my campaigns and my list and my subscribers and all that, even like my Instagram, like in the last 3 months, like grew a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing really changed other than I can do swipe ups,
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, I thought that looking at those numbers had to bring the results.
Mm-hmm.
And so right now I'm kind of like, okay, like I'm trying to align different so
Mm-hmm.
that the numbers don't mesmerize me,
Mm-hmm.
only to kind of like bring a disappointment at the end, because the disappointment that I feel after looking at those astronomical numbers is what is making me lose momentum emotionally with
Yeah.
with my products that are like so freaking fantastic. like what I'm doing right now, the summit, like for your audience, like I'm creating a summit that is like top notch quality, like
Yeah.
with the speakers, with the design, with the content is just so freaking good, right? And I know that, but like the mindset when you are selling it, like be needs to be steady, steady with it. And so when you were having like all these numbers like in front of you, and the campaign is reaching so many people, and so many people are saving, and so many people are commenting, sharing,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, then you start fantasizing about like that oasis.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of like as you get closer to the date of the close card, or the event actually happening, or whatever, registration closing, whatever, then you start feeling like that oasis is like it's disappearing, it's fading, it's not really there,
Mm-hmm.
it's there. And then that's what caused me, I feel, to lose momentum like several times in the past,
Yeah.
because looking at those numbers is so freaking distracting. And so.
Yeah, numbers are a distraction, and I'm so happy that you said that, because I think it's really easy to get obsessed with the numbers, because
Mhm.
they're there on all our social media. They're there in our analytics. They're there in our email list. We see them all the time,
Mhm.
and that can actually distract us from what's really going on. Because just because you have a certain number of followers, or a certain number of engagement, or a certain number of people on your list, doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have a certain number of clients or buyers or people that are going to invest in what you're doing. And so I think it's great that you're shifting away from being so fixated on the numbers, and instead focusing on creating a solution, like focusing on finding that way that's going to actually work, that is going to actually truly impact your audience.
Yeah.
So that's, yeah. So to our listeners, like, don't get fixated on the numbers. The numbers don't necessarily mean anything, like people buy numbers nowadays, and that doesn't mean shit. It doesn't mean anything. It just means that maybe they liked a post, and so they decide to follow you.
Mhm.
And so, so we need to find that way. We need to find a way for us to um, make it easy for people to say yes, um, help them feel aligned with what it is that we have to offer. And that starts with standing in that conviction of what you have to offer. So that energy that you had with Esther, with I have 100% success rate, like that is powerful, because that is going to continue to serve you and your audience in big ways. If we let ourselves be um, continue to get hurt or feel disappointed when we don't get the numbers we want enrolling in our programs or services, then
Mhm.
that's going to be a major deflation to our ego. And that's when people quit.
Mhm.
What matters is being resilient and focusing on what actually truly matters the most. You know that your services are powerful. You know that your courses and your programs that you've created, that are all like magnificently beautiful. Just the aesthetic is amazing. Um, and the content is powerful, and life, it can transform lives. You know this. And so we as leaders need to stand by our gifts. We need to stand with conviction by our programs and our offers and our services, and lead with that.
Yeah.
To our listeners, if there's someone who's like also in the same boat as you, like they have a large following, and yet they're struggling to translate that into ROI, what would you say to them?
Honestly, just don't look at them. Like make the intention of not start making the math before you get your actual results, because then you build this like crazy expectations from the numbers and from comparing yourself to the results that somebody else got, with similar numbers. And then
Mm.
you start creating that oasis that I mentioned, like this oasis that you're like, oh my gosh, is it big, is it small? Like you start building that up in your mind, and then that's what makes you lose your balance, your momentum, your alignment. Or in my case, that's what happens when I look at this oasis, like it
Mhm.
mesmerizes me. And then even though I've been there several times, when you get mesmerized, you kind of like, it's harder to snap out of it.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to do right now is actually just not look at it, because I know it's a distraction and I know it gets my mind going, and sometimes it's hard for me to stop it. And so
Mhm.
right now I'm like, okay, I realized that in the past launches, if I didn't know my numbers, if
Mhm.
I didn't know, like if ConvertKit just blocked, you know, my signups
Yeah.
and my number of subscribers, and I still had to send my emails and everything that I do for my launches, but I was just in the blind of how many people were getting it, I
Mhm.
would have been very happy with my results, because I did get people to buy it and they loved it and they went through it and they are so much better right now after, you know,
Yeah.
after the course or whatever they bought from me. And so if I didn't know my numbers, I would have never considered that I was failing, or
Mm.
that I was not like doing so much worse than this other person that is doing so much better or whatever. There wouldn't have been a comparison, because there was no oasis. There was just like the surprise of how many people I'm getting.
Mhm.
Like everything happened when I compare myself, and when I learned what conversion rates were normal for other people, and I
Mhm.
tried to judge myself with the same stick,
Mm.
you know?
Yeah.
So if somebody's going through that exact same thing, it's like, try not to look at your numbers. Do your Facebook campaigns and do your emails and everything, but try not to look at it. Like if you can actually put a post-it on that section, you know, and cover it and just do your thing for like the people that you want to help, without really thinking how many people are opening the emails and doing all this
Right.
thing. Because I received that advice before. Are they opening? Are they like clicking on it? And then that obsession with like the numbers and the clicks and the decrease in openings or whatever, the decrease in purchases, it just totally makes me lose my emotional stability
Yeah.
when it comes to like the impact I'm creating, the message that I have, like with
Mhm.
what is really important to me. And of course, everybody has to pay bills, so the worry creeps in, and then everything is just kind of fucked. You know?
Yeah, it disrupts our flow. When we start obsessing over the numbers, we can step out of like our flow, and then everything we do, we try and do it to boost the numbers. Like, oh, so I wrote something this way. Let me try and write it this way, which means that you're no longer like writing these messages or content or email that are straight from your heart. You're trying to like force it to be something different, and that's not going to create an aligned audience or aligned clients, or that's going to create actually a further disconnect between you and your audience. So that's great advice, and it's also the opposite of what many people will say. But it's worth a shot. If you are obsessing over your numbers, you have a large following, and it's not working, then try not obsessing over your numbers and try just approaching it straight from your heart and stand by what you offer.
Yes, exactly. And I don't want to say that looking at numbers is not smart. Maybe look at it after or something like
Yeah.
that.
Not
And
look at it like every minute of every day.
like, don't look at it if it's the thing that is causing you pain. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if your numbers are great and your conversion rate is great and looking at your numbers is getting you pumped, then look at them, you know?
Right.
But this advice is for the people that are struggling with like, it's not making sense. Oh my gosh, my numbers are so big and my conversion is so little. Like, where is the problem? Oh my gosh. And then you kind of spiral feeling bad. If that's happening to you, then don't look at it,
Mm-hmm.
because that's your oasis. And maybe there's somebody there listening that are not struggling with the numbers, maybe something else,
Mm-hmm.
maybe thinking that fame is in the other side of this thing I'm doing, or
Right.
whatever it is, your version of this oasis that you get closer and it's disappearing and you don't know
Mm-hmm.
what's happening because you swore it was there.
Mm-hmm.
um then just kind of like keep that away from you in the process while you're going through the fire of expecting results and having to deliver something that you promise or that you're creating or whatever. Then get clear on what is it that is causing you pain, and just kind of like protect yourself from that, because that's what is going to push you over the edge of like actually failing, or actually quitting, or actually like going, like getting depressed, you know.
Hmm. Yeah. Simply put, like follow what actually feels good and not what's making you feel worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Esther, thank you so much for I don't know a lot of entrepreneurs who would be this open about what's going on behind the scenes. And I think it's such valuable um, it's so valuable for people to see this,
Mhm.
because I think it's just our industries are so glamorized, and it sets people up with these false expectations and false hopes. And it also creates a major disconnect between why we're doing this in the first place. And I think it's really obvious now for our listeners that you stand for your purpose, like you stand by your why. It's important to you, and you're so driven to find a way to make this work. Um, and that's beautiful to see, because not a lot of people have that bravery or that tenacity to do so. So thank you so much for being so open on this episode and for sharing with us. Why don't you tell our audience how they can find you online, and then I'll also share those links in the show notes.
All right. Well, my name is Esther Iturralde, and so that's my Instagram, my Facebook, my website. Everything is under my full name.
Perfect.
Um, and yeah, so in my Instagram, which I respond to every single DM. Sometimes it takes me a little bit longer, but like yeah, like if you want to know about any of my courses, if you speak Spanish, I have many offerings, and if you don't, then I still do coaching in English or whatever. Like I have a branding business as well, and you can find everything on my site. So
Amazing. Thank you so much. And to our listeners, thank you for joining Esther and I on today's Thought Leader, where we're challenging you to rise up, speak up, and create a movement. If you dig this episode, please be sure to drop a rating and review on iTunes. To learn more about Esther, the links are in the show notes. And if you have any questions for either of us, or you just want to say hi, please reach out to us on social media. My handle is at I am Ruby. Now, I will see you back here next week for a brand new episode of today's Thought Leader.